Hello and welcome to the Metroidvania Review official stream. My name is Professor Q, aka Darren. Actually, I did that backwards. It's Darren, aka Professor Q. And I have here with me today, Nick.
How's it going, everybody?
And today, we are, at the request of some fans, we are going to go ahead and go through every single game that I reviewed, and possibly a couple more that are on here. I could see that Final Fantasy Tactics snuck its way onto this list. So what we're doing today is reviewing the quality of the game itself, in my opinion, of course, how good I think the game is. We're not going to spend too much time on how Metroidvania it is, although I will mention what my feeling is on that. I'll say it's higher, medium fit, or low fit, or whatever. But that's not the purpose of this tier list. We're not listing it as how Metroidvania it is. This is a good list to go to if you want to hear my suggestions for what games I recommend. And just to give an outline of what's going to happen today, there are over 200 games. So this is going to be part one of this, because I highly doubt we're going to be spending less than a minute on each of these games, especially if we go off on tangents. Thanks, Nick. And about an hour from now, I'm going to go ahead and switch over, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in order of how I reviewed these games. So what I reviewed first, and then kind of go through chronologically what I reviewed. And then about an hour from now, no matter where we're at on that process, I'm going to switch to Castlevania today. And we'll do all the Castlevania games at once, because I think it's easiest to talk about them together. And I think a lot of people are interested in how I would rank the Castlevania games against each other. And so you'll get to see that at the end of the stream today. And of course, feel free to pop questions in the chat. I have that right here in front of me, and I'll answer any questions as we go. So let's get to it. You excited?
Let's
Nick?
rank.
Let's rank. All right, so the game that started it all, the game that started the Metroidvania review, was Valdis Story, Abyssal City. This was the first review that went up on the Curator, and it is the worst review in my library. It actually never made it onto the website, because I kept telling myself that I was going to rewrite the review to a standard that I thought was okay to be on the website. And I never got around to it. I started replaying it again at the end of last year, because it had been, with Metroidvania review has been around for 3 or 4 years, something like that. I think it started in 2017, so in 2021 it would have been 4 years. It had been, and I actually played Valdis Story before I started the Metroidvania review. So there's a bunch of history that has nothing to do with the game itself. Valdis Story, Abyssal City is like Devil May Cry meets Metroidvania, and it is a very inspiring game. I think my favorite thing about it is that I just love exploring its world. I've heard some criticisms that the platforming isn't good, and it's really all just about the combat, and those criticisms are probably accurate. But how often is platforming really tested in a Metroidvania? Unless it's platforming focused, like Ori or Loot Box Life, it usually isn't. Valdis Story is all about the combat. Its combat is unique because it has cancels. You have a certain number of animation cancels where you can just drop down instantly and you become invincible. You can dash through enemies. It's really kind of a cool and unique combat system. And then layered behind that combat system, as you can see in some of these screenshots that I have on the screen here, is a very complex RPG system. You have a skill tree. Each character has 3 different trees. There are 4 different characters. You can start with 2, and you get 2 more unlocked when you beat the game once. So there's just so much to do in this game. If I had any complaint about it, I would say that it's because the builds that you have available are extremely imbalanced. So if you're really analyzing the metagame here, basically every class has maybe 2 optimal builds, but usually it's just the one that surpasses the other when you do all the math. And I mean, that alone is kind of common, especially in an indie game like this. But the thing that really kind of brings it down, and why I wouldn't put it up in the higher tiers, is the fact that it has a few quality of life problems. One of its features is that you can kill monsters in the best way possible and get a ranking just like in Devil May Cry. And if you get the highest ranking, then you get a special upgrade. And in order to, or after you beat the monster, it creates a checkpoint after you beat them. So you have to exit the game completely and reload your save file and go back to the boss from that save point in order to reset the boss if you beat them and got a poor score. Whereas when you're fighting the boss and you're trying over and over again, you could continue right at the beginning of the boss. Kind of a pain in the neck, just a minor thing. In my opinion, because of some of those minor issues, I would put Valdis Story in an A tier. I love this game, but it doesn't quite make the cut to be A+ or S.
So the question is that a good enough score for the game to get its own special item?
Its own special item?
Yeah, didn't you say you get an item if you score high enough?
Oh, that's true. Actually, there is an S rank, so no, I actually failed to give the next special item for Valdis Story.
It's gonna have to restart again and try again.
We have to restart this whole thing. All right, everybody, let's rewind. Actually, I wanted to make mention that most of these tiers are going to be based on the score that I gave them. However, I do change my mind over time as I learn more things and play more games. So some of the scores might be, the tiers I stick them in might be a little bit different than their score, and I can talk about that when I'm going through this. And basically, if it makes it A or higher, in my opinion, it's made it. It's a great game at that point. The difference between these two are basically just other qualities. S for me stands for standard setting. So those are the games that I think that other games should look to for design. And I think that applies to Valdis Story a little bit, but its execution can be improved. So if you want to be a S-ranked Valdis Story style game, then look at Valdis Story, play it for yourself, and if you're a developer, find out what you dislike about it and try and improve that. And welcome, Salmes, and welcome, Crazy Man, and I did say welcome to Kyle and NyQuil Filthy before the stream. I am Professor Q. I'm the voice behind the Mark Markson asked, "Who is this?" I think he's talking about me. Is he talking about you? Who? Introduce yourself again.
Who, me?
Yeah. Okay. So that's who me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Nick. I'm the other guy that was every once in a while streaming on the weekends.
Yeah. I think you were every weekend. Well, for the most part.
Yeah, I was like 90%.
If you watch the other Let's Play videos on my channel, you should be familiar with Nick.
I'm around.
And welcome to Ducati Fan FL. Alright, so the next game that I reviewed after Valdis Story was Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, and switching tabs here. And there's a Playism sale this week, so you can get Momodora. Actually, everything's on sale this week, so this is actually a good time to look through these games, so you might have some ideas while the sale's going on.
We timed this perfect.
I actually did not even think about that when I started this today. That was not the point of this. So Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight is great because Nick actually gifted this one to me. And it contributed to what became...
I actually played this game.
Did you see what Mark Markson said?
Mm-hmm. Oh. I do aspire to be everyone's hero.
Oh yeah, that was something else I was going to mention, is that Nick hasn't played half as many Metroidvanias that I played. I don't think you played 10% as many Metroidvanias that I played, but this is one of these... 10%?
Probably 1%, although I did play this one. I mean, somehow.
Yeah. So Nick, how about you talk about this one for a minute?
Oh, geez, man. I don't...
Putting you on the spot.
Metroidvania.
This is the best part, the part where you have to whack the lady in the chest.
Oh, man.
I'm going to use the word chest.
So the game. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't remember. Did I play this after or before Hollow Knight? I think I probably played it after.
I think you played it after. I think I gifted it back to you afterwards. Like, you gave it to me for, like, my birthday or something, and then...
Yeah. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I remember finding the secret ending I found kind of annoying, because there was no way that I was ever going to do that on my own. But that's just because I don't have, like... the professional Metroidvania skills that you do to like spider sense those things out.
Oh, so that actually brings up my favorite thing about this game is I think this game has fantastic difficulty settings. Like a lot of difficulty settings, it just increases the damage that enemies can take and the damage that you take. This one actually increases the number of enemies that are in rooms. I think bosses may have extra attacks that they'll use on you or be more aggressive, that type of thing. So it's actually interesting to raise the difficulty rather than, tedious, which is often the case. Yeah. Or, just a way to use your powers more. So I think the best way to describe this game is short and sweet. It is very combat focused just like Valdis story, there's a connection between these two. When you beat bosses perfect, you get special items from them. I've never attempted that though, because I never really felt like I needed to. Like, this game's not very build focused like Valdis story is. So I can't tell you whether or not the quality of life is different there. And yes, Salme says Metroidvania sense is tingling. Some people would say that this is a lower fit Metroidvania. I would put this as medium fit. Baldur's Story, by the way, is what I would consider a high fit. I think it has definitely got that feel of Castlevania style exploration. This one's very mini, and it really only has one ability gate. I think you start with a double jump. I played it a little bit for some footage I needed for our top 10 that we did for our Metroidvania group. And I can remember some of it from that, but as you can see, it has beautiful pixel art. If you like combat and you just want a good combat, really well focused, you have 2 attacks, you have your bow, you got your sword, and everything is just tightly focused around that. Every boss is set up so that you can beat it taking no damage. This is a great game to try. And thank you, Trip Good Guy. So I actually put this on the same tier as Valdis Story, and the reason why is because its length is a little bit short. It does have a few minor annoyances. Like you said, the secret ending was a bit obtuse.
Yes, absolutely.
But, it's probably going to take you how long did it take you to beat it, Nick, as a unprofessional Metroidvania player?
All right, hold on. Let me load up Steam. I'll check real quick.
Load up Steam and check what you got. And yeah, actually, I agree with Nightfall Filthy. There's a lot of these games that have the moe thing going on. This one actually feels less moe because they feel a little bit less like children. They're more like teenagers. But, as far as the cute girls aesthetic goes, I think it does it tastefully, which sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But yeah, I think it took me only 4 hours the first time I beat it.
Yeah, I'm sure it took me longer than that.
It shows me as 7.1 hours on record when I look at my Steam. But that's because I recorded footage and probably replayed it at least once. So
yeah, my playtime was 5.3 hours. So that sounds about right.
Yeah, so 4 to 6 hours. Yeah, the sequel. Everybody get excited because there's a sequel coming for that game.
Ooh.
Yeah. So definitely A tier. This is a great game. Shadow Complex is the next one. This is one that I actually would change my review score if I had done things differently.
I played this too.
You did play this. All right, Nick, talk a little bit about this one.
Played it back. So I played this game all the way back. It was on the Xbox 360. They used to do these things over the summer called I think it was called the Summer of Arcade. And this was a game that they launched as a Summer of Arcade title, and probably was the first Metroidvania I played since, like, Metroids back in the day. And this was, I want to say, 2011 or something like that. And it just blew me away. Now, keep in mind the context of when I played it. But just feeling like this big budget version of a genre that I had not seen in a very long time. And it felt like it kind of refreshed things. Now, I don't know when you played it, but I think that context probably plays into your opinion of the game. But back when it was in that Summer of Arcade suite, this game was a standout.
So yeah, there's definitely biases that go into this when you play it. When I played it, it felt dated. It's this Unreal Engine. Oops, I played this probably in 2017, I think, when I started the Metroidvania review. I got it for free. It was free at one point, and it was just sitting in my library, and it was just a game that I had when I was trying to fill out the 10 games I needed in order to start the curator. So as a minor Metroid fan, as you might know me as, going into this with all those biases, I think its exploration is great. I think if you like Metroid and you like it for the exploration and just collecting items, I think it's great. From a gameplay perspective, the combat is extremely brain dead. Like, you just walk into a room and hold down the shoot button and he just shoots everything, and that's it. Like, you don't really have to aim. Like, you have to aim a little bit, but you just go into a room, and then like when you get the grenade launcher upgrade and you get to a boss, you just unload your grenades and the boss is dead. And it just, I don't know what difficulty I was playing on. I usually play on the hardest difficulty when I play these games, so that may have played into it. I don't remember what I did it as, but that's my main complaint about it. I think the exploration is fantastic, though. So if you can look past some kind of brainless combat, I think Shadow Complex is a good game to try. Because of that combat, I kind of stick that in the B tier. Based on the review score that I gave it, which was a 3 out of 5 originally, that would be the C tier. But I think that because of that exploration, it just brings it up to a higher ranking, I think. If I could find it here. I should probably find it on the list before I pull up the thing. Where is Shadow Complex?
The fishing for it?
Yeah. The Shadow Complex? Oh, there it is. I don't know what I was looking for. So yeah, good B tier game. Highly recommend it, actually. Don't get it on Steam anymore, because I don't think it's ever going to be discounted again, because actually it was published by Epic Games. If you're okay with using Epic Games, then you can get it there. But I'm actually kind of surprised it's actually still for sale on Steam. I thought that they got rid of that, but maybe not. So, Shadow Complex.
Accessibility is good.
I recommend Shadow Complex. Outland. This might be a controversial opinion. Outland's the next one. I actually don't think you can get... Oh gosh, I don't think you can get Outland anymore at all. Not available for purchase. All right, so no pictures for Outland.
That's interesting. I wonder why.
Can you pull it up on Steam? Is that possible?
Let me see.
Well, whatever the case, Outland is an Ikaruga style platformer. I'm going to call it a platformer because I don't think it's very Metroidvania. I think it's low fit. Let me see if you can even pull up the Steam page anymore.
Yeah, it's up. You can get it for $3 right now.
Really?
Yeah.
It must have been off the store for a little while, and maybe that's the reason why I didn't put a link on the site.
Oh man, this is giving me real strong Ikaruga vibes.
Yeah, so the big gimmick here is that you can switch back and forth between red and blue, and let me go ahead and fast forward on this video a little bit so you can kind of see. All right, so like you see right there, you're changing the platforms between red and blue. You can't stand on red platforms if you're not red currently. It has gimmicks like that, and frankly, I think that it does a better job as a linear platformer than it does as a Metroidvania, and I kind of found it boring. Like, its combat kind of lends more towards fast-paced action, and it's just kind of slow. Like, I don't know if you can tell that from the footage here, but like your sword feels slow and everything's just kind of slowly paced, which I guess kind of lends well to the amount of dodging that it kind of has you do. But I think my biggest problem with it is that I went into it expecting a Metroidvania, and its Metroidvania elements are very weak. The main thing that you find when exploring is just health upgrades. There really isn't like major ability gating. It has a connected world, but I'm going off of memory, of course, at this point. But I don't know. It's fine.
How do you like the art style?
The art style is great. The music's very bland. I think like the art style is fantastic. I really wanted this to have like a techno vibe and just a little bit faster pace. And frankly, it would work better as a linear platform. I think the concept is fantastic. And if you're into playing games to just kind of experience concepts, I would recommend it for that. I personally didn't really like it. I would give that one the C tier on that. Just kind of, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. Actually, D tier is what I would give it.
Oh, D tier.
Yeah. So it's still a passing grade, like, sort of recommended, but...
So what are they? So we already stated that S is standard setting. What do the other letters stand for?
All right, so A+ is close to standard setting. It just needs a little bit more to differentiate itself. Is really the biggest thing there.
That doesn't start with A+.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's attractive, because that's
okay.
a T.
There we go.
Okay, we're not going to continue with this particular line of thought. We're just going to move on to the next game. Axiom Verge. That's a good one to talk about. So when I was starting the Metroidvania review, I wanted to fill out the list with a bunch of games that... So you have to have 10 reviews in order to start a curator, and so that was my first goal, was to get to 10 games. And I figured I should play Axiom Verge to play one that people knew about. This is one got a lot of hype from Metroid fans. A lot of people say it's a very close game to Metroid. Super Bunny Hop said that it was too iterative and didn't like it. I actually love Axiom Verge, but not for the gameplay. You haven't played this one, have you, Nick?
I started this, but I didn't finish it.
Yes, well, I don't blame you. The best part about this game, like Shadow Complex, is the exploration. But unlike Shadow Complex, I think that it was really the sci-fi story that sold me on this one. And I know that some people really hate that, but honestly, that's probably the most Metroid thing about this game, is the fact that it has just a really... If you read into it, there's a lot to think about with what they present here. And I don't know, that may be pretentious, but I think that was what really did it for me. The gameplay itself, it's the AI is probably the worst part. Enemies will just track towards you near the end of the game, and it's really a pain to deal with them. But as you can see from this footage that's being shown, there are so many weapons that you can play with. So no matter what it is you're fighting, and no matter how terrible the pattern is, you have a ton of different strategy options to use to try and get past them. I do not recommend playing this game on hard mode, which is what I did. Play it on normal and just kind of enjoy the exploration, and expect to see a lot of story that you can get out of the little details and make theories about. That's really the big advantage of it. And, while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about Axiom Verge 2, since that came out just last year. Axiom Verge 1, I give a A. I think that's what my opinion is on it. So let's go ahead and find that and put that in the thing. And Axiom Verge 2, I also give an A. It is very similar. However, I don't like the story as much. That's not what really... But what it does do well is I think it improves everything about the exploration. Like, if you want to see a good example of how to do exploration well, this is the game. The reason why it doesn't get a higher score than A, than its predecessor, is it doesn't have that story, first off, but also the things that you explore and find become irrelevant very quickly, because the combat is even less of a focus in this game. In fact, you can skip most of it, and basically all of the upgrades that you find are combat oriented, and they're all skill tree based, so you just get points to use on a skill tree. So after you purchase the relevant skill tree things that you need, you're done. Then it's not exciting to find things anymore, other than the joy of finding it. So that's its biggest weakness.
That is a pretty big weakness.
So, yeah. By the way, I am going to talk about sequels to games as we get to them, if I played them, which is relevant because the next game we're talking about is Rogue Legacy. Speaking of how
much that.
You did play that. All right, Nick, wait, I'm putting you on the spot again. He's like,
I was put off by this game's difficulty level. I probably, at this point, this was early in my I like roguelikes period of time, so I've played a lot more now, which means if I go back, I would probably enjoy this game more, but it really got in the way of my enjoyment because of the format of roguelites, where you're repeating yourself over and over, and so if it doesn't feel like you're making enough progress, you get stymied fairly quick, and that's what happened to me with this game. Also, I hated the random factors, like, oh, your guy's gonna sneeze now, so basically it just ruined your entire run, and you might as well not even try with that one, so you just die and try again, which I wasn't a big fan of that.
So yeah, that's like its biggest gimmick, though, is the fact that you come back with different problems.
No, I know. I mean, it was goofy, but I mean, certain problems were just like debilitatingly bad.
Yeah.
like the one where the whole level is upside down. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to win this.
So, Salmes, I know that you're in the chat and you played Rogue Legacy 2. Well, let's talk about what this game is first, real quick, and then if you want to mention in the chat how much you like Rogue Legacy 2 if you played it, Salmes, then I can talk about that too. But I haven't played the sequel yet. I own it. It was on my list. I may play it and review it later, but this game is pure novelty to me. And when a game is pure novelty, basically what that means is it's the type of game that you want to play when you just want to relax and not worry about getting good or anything like that. And it doesn't really offer anything besides that. As Nick mentioned, the whole thing is that it's a roguelike in the sense that the object of the game is to go into the world, die, and then spend points that you get to get better, and then that's kind of how you progress. You can technically get good. I think you can beat it on the first playthrough if you are good enough. But that's not the game's focus.
Gimmick, yeah.
Yeah. And so I enjoy this type of game. I found it relaxing. By the way, it's not very Metroidvania at all. It kind of has a Castlevania vibe to it. But it doesn't really have ability gating or that type of thing. And we'll talk about some roguelikes as we go. Metroidvania roguelikes that do the Metroidvania thing better. Let's see. Rogue elements in a Metroidvania make about sense as an open world Metroidvania. Yeah, I don't know. It's a different genre in my opinion. You got to think of it as something other than Metroidvania when you play it. And if you go into this just wanting something to sit back and just not really think and just chop some enemies with a giant sword, it's great. The gimmicks, I like Nick. I don't think they added that much, to be honest. I think that the game would have been fine without them. The best part about the game is just going in and leveling up, in my opinion. The gimmicks occasionally allow you to have a different class, and I think that was the best part about it. Things like the Tourette syndrome and stuff like that, it's theming, it's flavor, it's fine. So Salme
until it gets in the way.
Salme says that the second game completely replaces the first game. It's just a better version.
That's good to know.
And apparently it has ability gating. I think that this one had some minor ability gating. At the very least, it had key gating, the things that you couldn't access without things you unlocked. Rogue Legacy 2 sounds like the way to go these days. How much is Rogue Legacy 2 these days?
Let me check.
I think it just barely got out of early access, so you can get Rogue Legacy 2 for $20. And actually, something I haven't been doing is talking about what platforms these are on. Rogue Legacy is basically on every platform if you're interested in this game. Outland was on the 7th gen platforms, but those are kind of dead now. Momodora you can get on pretty much everything. Valdis story I think maybe exclusive to PC still. I don't know because I never had it on my website, so I don't know if there's a link there. But if somebody can pop up in the chat and tell us, that would be helpful. And Axiom Verge is still currently only on Epic Games, the sequel, but these two are on Switch and PC. So
one thing I'll give Rogue Legacy 2, it looks like the art style has a lot more character. Like everything was very generic in the first one.
So yeah, the first one I give a C. Which is it's a good game, but it's not one that I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna blow your mind. That's what C tier is for me. Apotheon, another game that I'm probably gonna have a controversial opinion on. So Apotheon is got really good graphics and a very interesting approach to how to make a game. So its combat, I would say that it uses its theming perfectly, and that kind of is at a detriment to the gameplay. Because you play as these, they look like the drawings you would see on Greek artifacts. However, they play more like like if you're playing a puppet in one of those like Chinese puppet shows. There's another game that does that. But like when you swing your weapon, I think you have to use, it's been so long since I played this, I think you have to use the right stick to either just aim, or I think you actually had to swing your right stick in order to do it. And it's very imprecise and awkward, making the combat feel more like a crapshoot. And it's one of those games where the content is just way more than I wanted. There's just a lot of repetitive style of combat, and overall, I didn't like it because of that. As far as the Metroidvania aspect, it is. Actually, Solomais' recommendation to play this with mouse and keyboard would probably have improved the experience quite a bit. I did play it with a controller, so my opinion may be biased because of that. It plays more like Mega Man than it does like a Metroidvania. You just pick a boss in like what feels like a Skyrim town, and then you go in there and you kill the god, and that's the object of the game. Is you just kill different gods, and I don't know. The graphics are good.
Wonder if anybody's going to make a Greek game where you don't kill the gods.
I don't know, but it doesn't get me that excited, to be honest. I feel like it used its theming in a weird way. Like you said, killing the gods is so old at this point. I would like to see one that reverences Greek mythology a little bit more than tries to destroy it, like these games. So, in my opinion, Apotheon's a D tier game. That was a hard one to finish.
You know what? Being like a Greek god and getting killed over and over in more and more video games sounds like some sort of Greek torture.
That's actually kind of ironic, isn't it? All right, so the next game is a game that nobody's heard of. It's called Cave Story. Speaking of games that aren't Metroidvania.
I played this game. I am shocked at how many of these I've played.
Yeah, I think that the early ones you probably have, and then I probably got to more recent releases, and when I get to that, you probably have fewer.
Yeah, much fewer, yeah.
All right, well, I bet you anything you could probably say as much about Cave Story as I can, so go at it, Nick. I'm going to make you do it.
I was annoyed by the fact that you can get a bad ending by doing something and you have no clue when it happens.
That's my favorite part of the game.
I complained about that last time on the last game I talked about, so obviously I hate that. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed Cave Story. I enjoyed the weapon power-up mechanic and isn't it if you got hit, it would power you down, and if you kept doing damage, it would power you up?
Yes, Iconoclasts stole that, actually, but yeah, it's...
Yeah.
So
I played that too.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed exploration. It definitely feels like a linear platformer. So even I, with my genres don't matter, wouldn't ever call this a Metroidvania. But yeah, I enjoyed Cave Story, and for what it is, and for when it came out, I don't know if people are real familiar with it, but this was like one of the very first indie games. Like this established what it meant to be an indie game,
right.
Which just on that point, this is a hell of a piece of gaming history.
Yeah. So I have to justify this a lot more because of where I'm going to put it on my tier list. But the combat in this game, in my opinion, is one of those perfect examples of timeless. The bosses are great to fight, and you can optimize them. And they have extra content that is extremely hard, which is where the secret ending thing actually benefits this game. Because if that was the regular ending, I think a lot of people would be too frustrated with this game to, finish it. To be honest, I like it. I like how it has exit points before the hardest parts of the game. Like even like the normal ending, it has an exit point where it's just like you can just leave if you guys want and get an ending if you want. Upgrade that jetpack. Yeah, I think that the secret ending was one of my favorite parts of this game because just really digging into this game, sinking my teeth into it. It was fun to discover all of that basically on my own back in the day, and the way it's executed, I think, is interesting. There are some aspects of it that are a bit arbitrary, like to get one of the factors in the secret ending requires you to do something really counterintuitive, but I think it's cool. If I were to make any complaint about this game today, I think that replaying it, the story aspects are a bit tedious if you don't know exactly where to go to kind of speed run past it. But yeah, here comes the F, right? F tier. No, actually, I put this one in the S tier. I think it's one that games should look towards for how to make a great game, and I think it deserves all the accolades that it gets. That is a very uncontroversial opinion. I'm sure that's probably going to upset some people, but in my opinion, that is one of the best games out there, just period. Even if it's not a Metroidvania.
Agreed.
Did you play Salt and Sanctuary, Nick?
I did play Salt and Sanctuary.
Because Salt and Sanctuary is what's next.
So, whatever ranking it gets, it deserves one ranking lower because of the rake traps. That's my hot take.
I need to play Super Gear Quest. I know, Salmace, I really do. That's related to K-Story, not to Salt and Sanctuary. So yeah, if you see that Sideshow Bob scene from The Simpsons, where he like walks into rakes and it's like, that's what Nick was in this game.
It very much so was. There was one particular rake trap that I specifically remember hitting every time, and I could even be running towards it and think, okay, don't hit the rake trap, and then I'd get distracted and hit the rake trap.
So this is one of the few true Souls-likes out there. I know that Souls-like gets thrown around everywhere these days, which, by the way, go watch Iron Pineapple's Souls-likes that you never heard of videos. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Welcome, Denzi. Salt and Sanctuary is one of the only true Souls-like, one of the games I would accept as a true Souls-like. It does everything that Dark Souls does. It has the weight, or it doesn't actually have the weight. It has the weightiness of it. It doesn't have like a weight stat. It has the stamina bar. It has the death corpse run thing that Dark Souls stole from Diablo 2, that type of thing. It just feels exactly like Dark Souls if it was a 2D platformer. You even have fall damage in this game. Fun. It's very fun. If you like Dark Souls, then I think that you'll fit right into this. It does a few things different. It does a skill tree, which I don't know if it has a picture of here. Instead of leveling up, you level up on a skill tree. I have some complaints about that, which is kind of feeds into my ranking of it. It's very imbalanced because of that. The way it handles weapons, it almost feels like unnecessary to upgrade your weapon skills because mid-tier weapons can be just as powerful as top-tier weapons. But I think my favorite thing about this game is that it has local co-op, which we played through. So if you have a friend that you can play with, I think that probably adds a tier ranking to this. But overall, some of the bosses are a little bit not the best designed as far as telegraphing. I know that there's a lake witch. I can't remember her name. Probably Witch of the Lake, that a lot of people like see as like a barrier. And part of the problem with the 2D plane is that you have less to work with on boss design, and I feel like that kind of hurts this game. And yeah, the look of the game isn't particularly great. Troop Good Guy points out that it just doesn't look very good, but
it gave me Flash game vibes, actually.
Yeah, which, you know,
not bad. You can make a good looking Flash game.
Yeah, but this particular art style probably kind of defies its theming a little bit. That's another thing, is I felt like the story was kind of nonsensical, which was, you know, Dark Souls is obtuse, but it's not nonsensical, if that makes sense. That's something I could talk about for a while. Is Dark Souls on here? I think I joked about putting it on here. All right, well, we're not talking about Dark Souls, so it's not on here.
But we just did our obligation to talk about Dark Souls during a stream.
Well, we're talking about Salt and Sanctuary. What did you think was going to happen? Anyway, I put Salt and Sanctuary in A tier. There's a lot to do in that game. I think it's very fun. I think it's very good, but it definitely doesn't make it to the higher echelons of my tier list.
Did you play the sequel?
I was about to say that. I haven't played Salt and Sacrifice. Apparently it's less Metroidvania or something. I don't know. It sounds like people were kind of disappointed with it. Just kind of looking at some of the threads that popped up in our Metroidvania when it happened. All right, so the next game is Dungeon of Zolthan, which is, I really like this game. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5, which, you know, is going to be your C tier. But I love mini Metroidvanias. Mini Metroidvanias are great. I love games that you can beat in. I think you could beat this in probably 30 minutes. And how much is it? 99 cents. So for $1, you can get 30 minutes of gameplay out of this. I actually have a full playthrough if you watch the Metroidvania podcast channel, which Calder. I used to be on that show. Calder Out the Master is still doing it every Wednesday night. I did a full playthrough of this and a few other mini Metroidvanias during that time. And I don't know. It's just a fun little short just taste of Metroidvania games. And the combat's solid, and the only reason why I'm giving it a C is because it's short, and you'd probably be left wanting more. I don't know, it's cute. It's a cute game.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the little bite-sized package minivanias.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not trying to order these at all. I might do that at the end of the last stream. Try and like rank them based off of where they should be, like within that
Rank
tier.
them in the ranks.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that right now. I'm just kind of throwing them in there for now. Let's see. Axiom Verge 1 felt more original than the second one. Yeah, I can agree with that. There's a sequel problem in general. The problem with Axiom Verge 1 is it didn't really leave a lot of room for a sequel, and technically Axiom Verge 2 is more of a spin-off type thing. All right, Nick, what do you see? Or do you see it yet? Is it too laggy?
No, I don't see it. Remember, I'm on like a 15-second delay on the screen.
The next game is one of my favorites. This was my first introduction to Team Ladybug. That is Pharaoh Rebirth. Of the games that surprised me the most, this is the one that I like. If I were to make a list of games that surprised me the most, this would be on that list. The pixel art is fantastic. I love Team Ladybug's pixel art. But the biggest thing that this game has going for it is it just has so much charm. I love the characters. It's one of those games that, like Mega Man X5, where it just stops you every 5 steps to have like a, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid style conversation between the characters. But I like the characters enough that I thought that was a feature rather than a problem. If you have a problem with the story getting in the way of the gameplay, then you might not like that aspect of the game. But besides that, it just has really fun gameplay. You're so overpowered just from the start. Like, you whap things with your bunny ears, and if you jump into the area, you do like this crazy spin attack, and if you hit enemies with multiple times in a combo, you heal yourself, so you're encouraged. Just get in there and go to town. All the kind of Castlevania style special weapons that you have are also just completely overpowered. And but the game is also hard enough that all of that OP-ness is used. So highly recommend Pharaoh Rebirth. Is it Metroidvania? It's probably more like a Crest-like, as Atsero and Caldrath would call it, where you kind of select through levels, but each level does feel very Metroidvania once you get inside. But frankly, I think this is their best game. And honestly,
sounds like the Doom guy of Metroidvania is just get in there and kill and heal and kill and.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, it's really fun. So the reason why I'm going to give it the tier I'm giving it, this would be total A+ tier if it wasn't for one level. This level right here, the stinking car level, ruins your life. It is the worst thing that they've ever put into a game. I know this game might be S tier, possibly S tier if it wasn't for that terrible car level. And you have to play it in order to get through it. You'll be dying like a ton. So A tier for Pharaoh Rebirth.
We know that he doesn't play many infinite runners now.
Yeah, and I agree with True Good Guy. I think Team Ladybug just needs to have some AAA company dump a bunch of money on them, because they'll make the perfect Metroidvania if they had it. And you know, all their other games are fun. The thing that Team Ladybug really nails is the moment-to-moment gameplay, and Pharaoh Rebirth is also part of that, except for that car level. But yeah, I'd probably give this game an S tier if it wasn't for that one level. The next game on the list is Ghost 1.0. This is made by the Unepic team. So actually, you know what? Let's talk about Unepic first. Let me find Unepic real quick, because I feel like talking about it in that order is probably better. I need to play Unmetal still. See, it's on my wish list. Where's Unepic? I don't know why I can't find it. All right, so Unepic. I'm only reviewing the single player. Salmace keeps telling me that I reviewed the game unfairly because I did not also review the multiplayer, and I probably should still do that. In fact, maybe I should set that up sooner than later. But this game is sort of like if you took like old school Dungeons and Dragons, like back when you had to use maces to kill skeletons. They actually talk about that in the beginning of the game. Look at the map on this thing. And it kind of has that vibe to it. You kind of go from room to room, you light all these torches, you kill the monsters, and how you build your character is way more important than anything else. And that's great. There's, you know, a bunch of different options there. I think it's fun for that. gosh, what did I review this as? I don't know if I have my review on here. I can't remember. I think I gave this a 3.5, which is what my gut is telling me right now. One of the reasons why I have my reviews open is so I can let's see, kind of reference myself here.
Yeah, refer back.
Yeah, let me just click here and see. Yeah, I gave it a 3.5, so that's right. Refer back just to make sure that I'm not forgetting something about it. The reason why I give it a B tier is because it gets a little bit old by the end. I think the best part about it, and the best part about all of Unepic Friends games, is it just has so much charm with the characters and story. I think that if you're into that type of thing, then definitely recommend this game. And apparently the multiplayer on this really makes the game. Salmes keeps bringing me back to that, so I need to try that. Single player, it's fun. It's great. I think it's good B tier game. Ghost 1.0, I would actually rate lower. It has the same charm as Unepic, in the sense that I think the characters are great. I can't remember what his name is, but there's one character in particular I really liked. The gameplay itself, you go to a hub, you collect 4 things, and you go find another hub, and it has an identity crisis where it wants to be like a roguelite type game, but it also like has an option to make it more of a Metroidvania style game. It's also not really a Metroidvania. There's not really ability upgrades. There's some like movement upgrades you can get from the game's skill tree. But overall, because of its identity crisis and the gameplay is a little bit off, Unepic is definitely the better game since it has a better, tighter focus. But both of them have the same charm for the characters, in my opinion. And I am having the hardest time finding this game on the list. And ironically...
Maybe what you could do is when you start talking about a game, pick its card up, and put it in the very bottom. Put it in the
Nancy Drew tier. That's probably a good idea. Just find it on the list before I do it. Yeah, this is all improvised, guys. I don't know if you noticed that. All right, so Ghost came out with another game, Mini Ghosts, which I'm just going to go ahead and find on their Steam group page. Mini Ghost is I didn't realize you can make your own characters now. I didn't know if that was a new thing or not. It's a mini Metroidvania, and I kind of like it more than... wow, they added a lot of customization options to this. You can basically make it whatever game you want. It's a goofy spin-off, and it has nothing to do with Ghost 1.0. But it has kind of a really old-school MSX vibe to it. And as many Metroidvanias go, I think it's great. Same problem as Dungeon of Zolthan. The main issue with it is that it's kind of short and simple, and but it looks like it has a level editor and a bunch of other things that if you wanted to play around with it, you could probably make some interesting things with it. It's a fun playthrough. I kind of liked it more than Mini Ghost. Or, I'm sorry, than Ghost 1.0 for the gameplay, but it doesn't have the same charm as far as the story goes, so it's kind of in the same tier for me. Love those mini Metroidvanias, though. Love playing those. All right.
Yeah, satisfying.
Great little bite-sized things to put between like bigger games that you're playing.
Palate cleansers.
Yeah. Or if you're playing like Final Fantasy 14 and you just want some Metroidvania and don't want to spend too much time on it, get a 2 hour or less mini Metroidvania. Oh boy, La-Mulana.
A game I never played because I know I would hate
it. All right, so this is the nichest of nichest games. I think that probably 80% of the people you talk to that have tried this game hate it. I love this game. It is perfect for what it is. It is where you take the secrets and puzzle solving, logic style puzzles, riddles, where you kind of like read what you're supposed to do and kind of interpret what you're supposed to do based off of that. There's a lot of like environmental style riddles. For instance, the one I like to reference a lot is there's a room where you have to break a wall in order to progress, and the only way you could know that based on what the game feeds you is if you go into your map, the room says that it is an antechamber. And when you realize that it doesn't connect to anything, then you can go in there and kind of break the wall. So it has really obtuse riddles like that. But it is incredibly satisfying to solve puzzles by yourself in this game because it really feels like you work for it. With that said, I did use a guide at some points, and I would be impressed if you can get through this game without a guide. There is an achievement for beating this game for under 40 hours, and I think that would be an achievement. I think that 80 hours is probably more of a good estimation of how long this game might take you. The combat is pretty good. I'd say it's probably about as good as some of the better Igavania games, but that's really not the focus. It's really about solving puzzles, and each screen is it has a lot of quality of life that helps with that puzzle solving that kind of makes it perfect at what it does. Each screen is its own thing, and each screen can be solved on its own, although some screens do interact with other screens and in ways that might be surprising. And what else was I going to say about that? And the greatest quality of life thing that they added is that you can teleport at any time and go anywhere else in the world. So it really opens up, like how it doesn't fight you on in aspects that could be really tedious and if it was a different game and more poorly designed. So in my opinion, La-Mulana is an S tier game. And yes, most people who play it probably won't like it.
That's okay. I mean, it goes to show that that taste and preference play a huge role in how we rank things.
Yeah,
a rank is not a score.
Super niche. And as Chip Good Guy says, it might feel lame if you finally reach for that guide afterwards, but I love that kind of thing. That's another reason why Cave Story's up there. Is I love secrets like that. It's to me that's part of the joy of a Metroidvania is just that discovery, and when you find things out on your own, it just feels so good.
You know what you'd probably enjoy is Tunic. I've been playing through Tunic, and it's got a lot of those kind of like puzzle in-game solving, like feeling like an actual like archaeologist puzzling stuff out.
Yeah, Tunic's on my list. I've been. It's one of those things like it's like Crosscode. I own it. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, that's my entire library.
La-Mulana 2 is more La-Mulana 1. There are some slight differences in the control that makes it more accessible. I would not say the word better. So some of the things that were difficult in the first game are easier now, which you could argue makes it better in the sense that it allows you to focus more on the puzzles. But on the subject of puzzles, they're a little bit more streamlined, which makes them easier to figure out. It also makes them feel less creative. So, there's catch-22 there. And then the other aspect of it is that the story just kind of feels tacked on, whereas the first game, the story was a good aspect of it. So, in my opinion, La-Mulana 2 is great because it gives you more La-Mulana, and there's not really a lot of source for that. But in my opinion, it's less than the first game, so A+ tier. It's not as good as the first game because it doesn't quite have that same level of novelty and creativity. And the difference between the 4.5 and 5 tier is really just pure preference. Like, I can make game design reasons for anything that's below the A tier, but the A+ and S tiers are pure preference in the way I rate things. Where's Shantae? I don't see Shantae. Let's find Shantae. Oh, hey, check it out. Shantae 2 didn't make it onto the list. So I guess we're only talking about Shantae and the Pirate's Curse right now. That's okay. I'm okay with this. Because I don't want to talk more about Shantae than I have to.
Good old Shantae.
Oh, Shantae. So that's the Game Club game for this month. If you are on the Our Metroidvania Discord, or on Our Metroidvania in general, they do a Game Club game every month where everybody plays the game, and then they have a little thread where everybody talks about it afterwards. Shantae is the game of the month this month. And Shantae is what I would describe as milquetoast. It's fine. It's solid, and from a gameplay perspective, it is just pretty good. And that's actually kind of way forward games in general, in my opinion. I think I like Mummy Demastered a little bit more than Shantae, just because I feel like it's a little bit more focused. I don't know if you can see from any of this footage, but this game has a lot of those variety moments that I feel like just kind of drag. There's a part where you have to carry that zombie girl for like 20 minutes in like a runner style game. Yeah, it's showing it right here. And that's kind of, it's like, all right, I guess we're playing a different game now. But overall, I feel like it's like, I don't know, this game kind of reminds me of Ocarina of Time overall, where you do a dungeon, you talk to a bunch of people and you do a dungeon. And I think you'll get a lot more out of this game if you fall in love with the characters. But overall, I just think it's a fine game, and in my opinion, it's kind of like Shadow Complex in that way, where it's got a lot of solid things going for it. Shantae, unlike Shadow Complex, doesn't have like a aspect to it that is just poorly done like the combat in Shadow Complex, but it's fine. It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of the art style?
I want to respond to Troop Good Guy real quick. Way Forward feels similar to Team Ladybug in a lot of ways. I agree with that. And actually, Shantae, after playing Pharaoh Rebirth and going into Shantae, Pharaoh Rebirth is Shantae done better, because you actually do the same attack. You whack with your ears, she whacks with her hair. Except that the difference is that Pharaoh Rebirth is fun and overpowered, and Shantae is you hit things a lot until they die, and they don't really have a lot of variety in like they're not difficult in any way. They're not a challenge. I'll put it that way. So yeah, I think that there are some similarities. As far as the art style, I love the pixel art. As far as the fan service, not much of a fan. So that does bias my opinion a little bit. This part of the game, you're in your bathtub when Risky Boots comes in and attacks you, and there's another part of the game where they all get in Princess Leia slave costumes for no apparent reason. Like, they all get captured, all the girls, and get put in those costumes. I can't see if I can find a picture of it here. But there's a bunch of different main female protagonists.
And so the story can happen.
Yeah, so the story can happen. So, yeah, there's a little bit of weirdness there. Doesn't do a lot for me, but, might do a lot for you. Who knows?
Art style actually reminds me of Iconoclasts.
Yeah, actually.
Kind of that bright Saturday morning cartoon kind of feel.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Next game is Ori. I love Ori. Nick, you need to play Ori.
I started Ori.
And you're welcome, Hal Paulo. You started Ori. How come you didn't finish Ori?
I don't know. I was like, man, I wish I could be killing everything, and then you can't. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Because that's the kind of thing, that kind of exploration platforming is usually my bread and butter, but for some reason it just didn't gel for me. Yeah. I think maybe it was just the time period that I was playing it. Sure.
Well, I was skeptical of Ori because I had watched reviews of it before I had played it finally, and there's some things said in the reviews that were the type of thing that I like. I really like when theming and story all comes together. If you watched my Metroid trilogy story video, I revealed that very hard in that video. That is one of my when a game nails that, it really does a lot for me. And I heard some complaints about Ori's story, that it kind of undermines itself, and it's that aspect of it is probably the weakest part. But the exploration, in my opinion, in this game and the platforming really make it for me. Probably one of the best examples of a Metroidvania platformer out there. Some people would say this is a Zelda-like and not a Metroidvania because part of its main focus is finding dungeons and completing them. But I felt like the world itself felt Metroidvania enough that I think that, I don't know, you may not have a different opinion than me on that. But the biggest weakness of this game is that the combat isn't great, as Salme says. It has an auto-target attack, makes combat kind of brainless. But I feel like the platforming more than makes up for it. And to be honest, because the combat is kind of brainless, it's a game that I would love to recommend. I love to recommend to players that don't like combat. because it's easy and you can focus on its best parts, which is the platforming and exploration. And that is not true of its sequel, Ori 2, or Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which should be on here. There it is. Ori and the Will of the Wisps takes Ori 1 and improves aspects of its platforming and adds combat. And in my opinion, while the combat is very well executed, it does not have the combat or the content to support it. Like, there are a lot of things you can do with the combat, but there's nothing that really challenges you with the combat and really forces you to kind of evolve that combat. It has a few issues in the sense that you heal yourself with your magic power, and that also plays into a lot of the weapons you can use, but the healing is so overpowered that you're barely incentivized to ever use the attacks unless you're just really experimenting, and it just kind of goes against itself. If there was any aspect of the combat I would say that is weak, that is that part. Other than that, the combat feels great, but the way they present it, it's like, all right, you're now going to fight a bunch of enemies in a little gauntlet and just kill them. And the best part of Ori is the platforming. So in my opinion, Ori and the Will of the Wisps isn't as good as the first one, but still a fantastic game. Ori 1, in my opinion, is a 5 out of 5 S-tier game. I think games that are trying to be Metroidvania platformers should look at this one. Maybe cut the combat out entirely might be a better choice, or make the combat more about the platforming. Taking Ori and adding Hollow Knight style combat to it, I think was a bit of a misdirection or a misguided choice. But Ori 2 is still good, and technically, if you take that combat aspect out of it, I think that the platform is better than the first one. But overall, I think that the combat brings it down just a little bit. That's my controversial opinion on Ori.
Nice. Now, did you want to shift gears at 9 o'clock to Castlevanias?
Yes, we're going to talk about Castlevanias now. And this one, I don't have all of them ready for pictures, so we're just going to kind of go through the tier list. So let's just go ahead and grab them all and throw them in the Nancy Drew tier and then talk about them. So let's go in chronological order. Let's go by release date. I think that's the best choice here.
Sense to me.
So let's talk
way back in the 80s.
Once upon a time, there was a game called Castlevania. I'm going to throw Bloodstained in there because, in my opinion, that's just Castlevania. Where is it? There it is. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about Castlevania Simon's Quest. Castlevania Simon's Quest is D tier. I'm sorry, E tier.
No, say it ain't so.
Some people really like Castlevania Simon's Quest. They don't like that I agree with everybody that's talked about it on YouTube. But I agree with everybody that's talked about it on YouTube. In my opinion, Castlevania Simon's Quest is actually more similar to La-Mulana than anything else. It's about finding riddles and finding secrets, and I should love it, but it just does not execute any of it well enough, in my opinion, to make it worthwhile. There are patches that you can get for it that make the English translation better, but I don't think that fixes the game. I think the biggest problem I have with the game is that part of the game is finding hidden walls, and how you do that is you toss holy water everywhere until you find the hidden wall, because there is nothing else that tells you where you're supposed to do that. So basically, playing Castlevania Simon's Quest blind is a holy water cleaning simulator.
Wait a minute. Wait, why did we start with Castlevania 2?
Oh, because we're talking about the Metroidvania style Castlevania games.
Oh, okay. So we don't. Oh, because the first one's too linear. All right. Fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Is this a big debate thing that I'm not aware of?
Whether or not Castlevania 2 is good?
No, whether or not Castlevania 1 is in any way a Metroidvania.
Oh no, there's no debate. Everybody recognizes that Classicvania is not Metroidvania at all. Castlevania 2 is the first one that has you in an interconnected world. Yeah, exploring and that type of things.
So just off the cuff, where would you rank the original Castlevania as a game?
I would give it a 4, I think. And actually, that's what I was going to grab next was the Castlevania Collection. That is S tier. Actually, no, I'll put that in A+ tier. Just thinking about all the games that are in there. This is just happens to be on the list. This technically has Simon's Quest and a bunch of the first Castlevania games, so the classic Vania games. My opinion, the best ones are Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania 3, and Castlevania Bloodlines. It also has Castlevania, I think it's called The Adventure. It's a terrible Game Boy game. Don't play that one. And I think the highest score I gave them was a 4.5, so I think A+ tier is appropriate. I can't remember what I rated the Bloodstained. I don't know if that's even on here. Curse of the Moon. I don't think it is, because it's not really a Metroidvania. But yeah, I think that I think you should definitely try that if you want to try out classic Vania, and definitely play Bloodlines at least. Bloodlines is probably the most accessible of the classic Vania, and probably a good entry point if you don't want something that's too hard. And it's probably my favorite of the bunch, although it's not the one I would rate the highest. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Where is that?
And here we go.
S tier.
Woo!
Woo! I feel like other Castlevania games do what Symphony of the Night did better than the later games that came out. But there's something about Symphony of the Night that just, I can't rate it lower than S. When you have a game that is created out of passion, you can tell. And every detail on every screen feels like something that somebody who loved working there put into the game. And you can just feel that. And there's so many just little things that just don't exist in the later Castlevania games that Castlevania Symphony of the Night has. And while I think that Aria of Sorrow has better variety and does the random drops and RPG-style combat a lot better than Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the simplicity of Castlevania Symphony of the Night has a certain charm to it as well. And as far as beginner Metroidvanias go, I think this is my number one pick for if you are trying to pick a first Metroidvania to play. In my opinion, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is a great choice to get kind of sink your teeth into what Metroidvania is. And it is, of course, one of the progenitors of the Metroidvania genre. It's what the genre is named after. So there's
what?
Yeah, this should be a surprise to everyone. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, 5 out of 5, S tier. It is the best Igavania game, in my opinion. And I think that it being on Game Boy Advance feeds into that. Because the castle couldn't be too large to have too much padding. So it's very, very well trimmed. Yeah, I would say that the style of Castlevania does carry it a lot, and that really does feed into my opinion on it. Is Castlevania style really helps it. But anyway, Aria of Sorrow, they made it so every enemy drops a power, and so you can build your character around 3 different power types, and it's fun and it's very replayable because of that. The castle, I think, is perfect. The biggest complaint I have about it is there's a couple of movement upgrades that you have to go into the menu to turn off and on. If that was fixed, then I don't know. I think it would just be the perfect Metroidvania with the RPG style that Castlevania presents. The next one is going to be Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Oh, I gave this one a B, I think. That's my gut feeling on that. This is probably my least favorite. I think I probably will put this in the C tier. It's my least.
So do these kind of run together for you?
No, there are huge differences between all the Castlevania games. The gimmick in Castlevania Circle of the Moon is it has this card system that's really cool. You pick a element card and then an effect card, and then it has different effects depending on which combination you pick. Some of them let you enchant your whip so that it's an ice whip or a fire whip. All those things are very cool. The problem with Circle of the Moon is that you can't get any of these cards except as random drops from enemies. And unlike Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, which has the same system essentially, not every enemy drops a card, and the drop rates are so low that you could go through half the game without any cards if you're very unlucky. I went through half the game with only 3 cards. As it turns out, I didn't know this when I played it. You can cheat. That once you get 2 cards, you can just tell the game to give you other card combinations by selecting them, even though you don't have them. And that would have improved my experience a lot, to be honest. But besides that, the castle itself it's fine. It's technically very linear, but what I like about the castle is that it just kind of dumps you into it, and you have a lot of places to go, whereas most Castlevania games kind of lead you through a linear pathway and then it slowly opens up. Technically, I would say that lead you into a pathway and slowly opening up is better design. But if you played all the Castlevania games, that's a unique aspect of Circle of the Moon that was kind of good for me. And yeah, there's a good ROM hack out there that lets you find the cards through exploration. Highly recommend using that ROM hack, and that would probably bump it up, maybe even to B tier at least, if you have that hack. That was my biggest suggestion for fixing it, was making it so you found the cards instead of them being random drops. Harmony of Dissonance is the next one, and I cannot read which one that is. Curse of Darkness. Help me out here. I can't see which one's what. Oh, this is it. The blue one. Harmony of Dissonance.
The blue one.
Also C tier. Its castle design is very tedious. There's a lot of running through zigzag hallways. Zigzag hallways are the staple of bad castle design, in my opinion. But besides that, I think the gameplay is fun. I actually like it more than Circle of the Moon. It has a similar system where you kind of combine different Belmont powers. Like you have the book, you have the the cross and the holy water, and then they have like an element you can add to it that kind of changes the effect of it. And I think the best part about the game is that you have a dash move, which none of the other Castlevanias have, right from the beginning. So even though you're zigzagging through hallways, you can kind of do it faster than if it was another Castlevania. And if you're not constantly spamming that dodge button, then I could see hating this game even more. But the Castlevania community hates this game. I think it's fine, but it's probably not the best, so C tier seems appropriate. And then Castlevania... Oh, I put Aria of Sorrow as technically the next one. I did that early. That's fine. Dawn of Sorrow, on the other hand, A tier. It's my least favorite of the DS Castlevanias, and that's just... The castle isn't as good as Aria. It added... like all the equipment that you would just find in Aria of Sorrow, you have to craft by taking the souls of monsters and crafting them that way. So you can't just find Soul Claimus and just go to town with it. And in my opinion, it's just to the detriment of the game. Just some of the fun of exploring the castle is taken away. And in my opinion, it's the weakest of the DS Castlevanias. The next one is Portrait of Ruin.
Oh man, I played this one.
Yeah, you want to talk about this one?
Oh, I don't remember much about it. I remember enjoying it. The problem with Castlevanias, and especially a game like Portrait of Ruin, is my opinion now is heavily flavored by Ego Raptor's opinion of these games, and I think it's fairly apt when he says that it's kind of a snack game where there's just a ton of content for you to play through, and yeah, it's tasty, but it's not necessarily ultra nutritious. And I think that's a pretty good description. Like, I enjoyed what I did. It was a good popcorn game, and I enjoyed the Mario 64 mechanic of climbing into paintings.
Yeah. So the reason why my opinion flip-flopped, I used to like Dawn of Sorrow more and then Portrait of Ruin, but when I replayed these to review them, I actually like Portrait of Ruin more, and the reason why is I think the snacks are better. Like saying it's a snack game. The difference between Charlotte and Jonathan's fun. I like that you have a magic user and a Belmont, essentially, that you can kind of switch between and have kind of dissimilar gameplay styles. Technically speaking, mechanically, it's the same system as Dawn of Sorrow, except that instead of having a completely customizable character where you can flip between a magic user and a fighter, you have two kind of very different characters. And the problem with Portrait of Ruin is if you want to 100% this game, it's extremely tedious. It's got a lot of unnecessary levels in it, like unnecessary space. So that's one of the reasons why I say Aria of Sorrow is where it is because it's just the bite or the fact that it's so concise compared to Portrait of Ruin, where it's just super bloated. But if you play just the parts you want to play and not worry about 100%ing, I just enjoy this more. Some of the final fights are just great, well-designed fights. They're really getting good at the combat in this one, and I feel like each game gets better at the combat. as we go, which brings us to Order of Ecclesia, which has the best combat of all the Igavania games, and is considered the hardest of the Castlevania games. I think I'm going to put that in the A+ tier. I just like Order of Ecclesia that much. Combat is so much fun. It is the least Metroidvania of the bunch. You spend most of the game, and the reason why I'm not putting it in the S tier is you spend most of the game going through linear kind of levels, sort of like Classicvania. But the gameplay's tight, and it has the best Dracula fight of the Igavania games, in my opinion. It also has a very unique combat system where you basically equip 2 spells. Sorry, I just bumped my mic. You equip 2 spells in each of your hands, and so like even your weapons are spells. You summon a hammer or whatever, and it's neat. Time Spinner stole its combat system. We'll talk about Time Spinner later. And then, so the next Castlevania game, let's see. Let's do Lament of Innocence. I think that's the next. I think I put this in C tier.
Where do they come up with these titles?
I don't know. I like Polygon's Pick 2 thing, though, that they came out with. Lament of Innocence is the prequel game to all of the Castlevania games, where they explain where Dracula comes from, how the whip became a whip, and the first Belmont, and it is fine. I know there's some people that like it, but it is wonky as heck playing it today. You were going to say something, Nick?
No, I just think it's funny that they felt the need to create a backstory for your whip.
So, on that subject, just talking about the story alone, it's stupid. Like, Castlevania's story hasn't ever been great, but, like, apparently Dracula became Dracula by finding these stones. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but the whip is your dead girlfriend that you've infused into the whip, but you spend absolutely no time with that girlfriend in the game, so it's like, okay, so yeah, it has a girl in it. I don't know if that means anything to me now. Like, I feel like that the lore that they added in this game just didn't add anything to the game, and then the gameplay itself is...
Does she talk to you? Like, is she conscious inside the whip?
No.
Okay.
She does talk to you beforehand. She is weird, like Uncanny Valley. Let me just...
Because, like, the person in a weapon reminded me of Transistor, so I was wondering if it was like she talks to you the whole time.
Oops, okay, there, let's see, in the game, let's see if I can find a picture of her. I'm typing weird right now. This weird uncanny... There she is, right there.
All right, hold on. It's got to load up.
There's the thumbnail on this YouTube video. Like, her face design just doesn't look right to me. She looks like a glass doll, like a poorly made glass doll.
Hold on, it's still...
Oh,
I don't like that. Make her go away. I'm glad her eyes are way too far apart.
Yeah.
She's like a carnivore. Or not a carnivore, herbivore. Excuse me.
Herbivore.
With her eyes on the side of her head.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, I won't talk more about that game. If somebody wants to argue with me about that, we can have a debate, but some people like it. I just think it's wonky. Curse of Darkness, on the other hand, that is an A-tier game. Actually has some Metroidvania ability gating, although the game is mostly linear, and has the same kind of hallways with enemies in it that Lament of Innocence has, but it has a lot of character building.
Is your girlfriend terrifying in that one?
No, you don't have a girlfriend in that one. And when I say character building, I mean like RPG character building. The story's still stupid, but it's like JoJo stupid, so it's like like fun stupid. So, I don't know. Curse of Darkness does everything that Castlevania Lament of Innocence does well and better, and then just introduces a really cool mechanic where you summon demons, and your familiars do a lot in that game, and you have a lot of different build options, and it's fun. It's great. I think that I would love to see a remake of Curse of Darkness that kind of solves its problems, adds some more intentional level design instead of just hallways, and upgrades it, a sequel or something. I love Curse of Darkness. Then there is, let's see, Mirror of Fate. We'll do that one next. This is D tier, I think is what I ultimately rated that as. Mercury Stream. Well, Mercury Stream. We're going to talk about the Mercury Stream next time when we talk about Metroid. They have some quirks about them that they kind of have in all their games, and this has the worst of it of Mercury Stream stuff. The story is complete nonsense. It's sort of like if I wrote a Mario story using Mario, Luigi, and Bowser, and wrote something completely different, but use the names. I don't know. People have done that with Mario and Luigi, so maybe that's not a good example, but. The way they use, they call back to Simon Belmont and Trevor Belmont and things like that is just kind of pointless. And then even taking that aspect out of it, the story isn't very well told. It's kind of convoluted and confusing. There's a character in there that does things that has no significance to anything other than to kind of push the plot forward. And so putting the story aside, the gameplay is slow, and it's one of those combo-based games. It's trying to be like a character action game. And so most of the combat is just whipping at things until they die. I think I even played on the harder difficulties, and I think that may have colored my opinion a little bit because, the combat
just gets spongier.
Yeah, the combat just got longer as a result of that, and moving around the castle is slow. You're heavy. A lot of the game is climbing up walls and waiting for traps to stop trapping, what I'm talking about. Those open close traps. Right. The best part of the game, ironically, is the puzzles, in my opinion. Those are the parts of the game I actually enjoyed. But yeah, I don't like that game very much at all. And Mercury Stream does get better with Metroid, but we'll talk about that when we talk about Metroid next week. Castlevania The Lakar Chronicles is technically a Classicvania. I'll go ahead and put it on the ranking list anyway. I think I put this in B tier. I actually couldn't finish this game because of a game-breaking glitch. But I think it's really solid. I think it's one of the better... I shouldn't say that. It's a very good Classicvania game with some elements of Demon's Crest in it. Where you kind of get upgrades that you can go back to other levels and find other upgrades and health upgrades and stuff. It's interesting. But its sequel, Lakar Chronicles 2, is pure Metroidvania. Actually, a little bit more like Order of Ecclesia in the sense that it starts out a little bit Classicvania with sort of linear levels, but then you get to an actual castle eventually, and it opens up into true Castlevania.
Fashion.
Yeah. What I like about Lakar Chronicles is it is pure equipment-based. You don't level up in that game. So in that sense, it's a little bit more like Metroid, if Metroid had the gear from Castlevania. So... But, it really rewards exploration, and I think that is the best thing you can do in a Metroidvania game. It is hard as heck. Probably one of the harder final bosses that I have fought. Maybe not the hardest, but if I were to do, top hardest final bosses, Castlevania Lakar Chronicles 2 would be on it. This game is completely free, and was basically endorsed by Koji Igarashi, so... yeah, give that one a shot. Go download it. Megami Games that made it is also making other games on Steam. So yeah, check them out. They're a talented developer. And then Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night.
I played this.
Yeah, you didn't like it. You didn't finish it, right?
No, I didn't finish it. I lost interest. Honestly, I don't know. People are going to probably disagree with me, but I didn't particularly care for the level design.
Yeah. I'm afraid, True Good Guy, that Shinsekai Into the Depths is not on here. I never actually got around to playing that. It was never released on Steam, and I could have gotten it on Switch, but that was part of the barrier for why I didn't do it, because my main platform is PC, and I will play games on other platforms if I feel like they're relevant enough. But as far as obscure games go, I definitely don't have a small list to play, so that's why I never got around to Shinsekai. It needs to come to Steam. But, I might get to it on the Switch if I can. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. I stick that in A+ tier. I agree with you, Nick, that the level design starts to get a little bit dull at a certain point, especially when you get to the cave areas. This is why Arya Sara is hero and Bloodstained is here. Even though Bloodstained technically does what Arya Sara and Donna Sara both do better. Bloodstained is a giant bag of chips, using the Eagle Raptor analogy. But it is a delicious bag of chips if you like that aspect. It is so much fun for me to just keep getting stuff. There is so much stuff and stuff on top of stuff, and there's more stuff. And it is It is the epitome of that, and it probably doesn't deserve A+ tier. Like, if I'm being completely objective, I might even say it's probably B tier. But I don't know. It As a Castlevania fan, I was fan serviced by this game. So
They should put that on the Steam page. It should be a quote to Q, and it should be, "It's got so much stuff."
It's got so much freaking stuff in it. And that aspect of it is fun, and there's just so much you can do with it. Playing on randomizer mode is fun, except for the fact that it's broken, and your progression might be locked inside a treasure chest that's somewhere. But yeah, Salame's. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna keep it an A+, just because I think it has all of it in there. But I can argue that it's an A or a B too. And yeah, if you're into graphics at all, its art style that it went with, it would have been better if it did pixel art. I don't know though. I liked some of the camera angles that it did. Like when you walk up to the castle and as it pans around, and there's a bunch of stuff like that where I'm like, okay, maybe this 2.5D thing is worth it for stuff like that. But when it comes to graphics, that's all really opinion, I think.
Oh yeah, that's it. When it comes to graphics in general, that's so subjective that it's difficult to lock that down.
Yeah, I mean, everything is going to be subjected to some degree to some bias somewhere, but I don't know. I thought they were fine. I would have rather it was pixel art, but it didn't ruin the game for me. And gosh, I probably spent like 50 hours with that one, so I think I actually did 100% the everything, like getting all the stuff, which is very unusual for me to do. So that says something about Bloodstained. I look forward to the sequel. I hope that they refine it. I think the biggest weakness of Bloodstained is the combat sucks, especially after Order of Ecclesia did such a great job with it. And if they can refine that for the next one, they could end up with an S tier game. And I probably will bump this down to A tier when the sequel comes out, and if it is an S tier game. Yeah, and Curse of the Moon is really good too. All right, well, we have a couple of minutes left, so let's do a couple more, I think, or at least one more.
Yep.
Just a quick commentary about Castlevania in general. It is a great game for beginner, or game series for beginners, because of its RPG aspects. If you ever are having trouble with it, you can always just go grind somewhere, and that's the intent of that aspect of it. Because of that, I feel like the gameplay is usually not tight enough to compete with other games if you're playing it for the gameplay. But something that Castlevania usually does well is the exploration aspect, which is where Symphony of the Night really stands out, and in my opinion, Aria of Sorrow as well. So as far as like the story and things like that, though, Castlevania has always been kind of dumb. I feel like Curse of Darkness was the closest to what I wanted it to be, where it just took that dumb and did such dumb things with it. What was it, Isaac? Let me pull that up. I mean, look at this guy. He looks like Diablo from from
the first game.
From JoJo. From the fifth arc of JoJo. He's just, what is this guy wearing? What the heck, man? Like,
I've got to wait for it to catch up.
I know. He just, but anyway.
Oh, he is edgelord to the max.
I wanted more of that from Castlevania. It needed to either improve its writing and, actually be meaningful in that sense, which the closest game that got to that was Order of Ecclesia and Symphony of the Night, or it just needed to go full JoJo. And it never quite crossed that line on either side for my taste.
Actually, you know what that art style reminds me of is Vagrant's story.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Like with the very wiry characters and the questionable armor.
Yeah.
I remember that. What was the bad guy's name in Vagrant's story? But he looks very similar to that, where he has like the lean upper body and he's basically just exposed, and then there's belts everywhere.
Yeah. I wanted more of that. I wanted it to be stupider. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, I love that stuff. that just anime to the max.
Well, Ender Lilies is good, Couch Cow, so that's a good excuse. All right, we'll do one more. Iconoclasts. This is the game that got me in trouble because so many people don't think this is a Metroidvania.
I played this.
You talk about this one for a bit, Dick. Let's have you talk for a bit.
Well, for me, the story was a standout. I thoroughly enjoyed the characters. The art style directly played into that because the style of the characters in and of itself has so much character. And it really says something about a story and its characters when I like the antagonists as characters as much, if not more than, the main characters. And I think a big part of that is because Robin is so blank slate for the whole game. So if you don't have interesting villains who are some of the primary people that she's interacting with, then your story's going to lag. So they really got that right. And obviously there's ally characters as well that are fun. But I actually thought the antagonists were more memorable at the end of the day. And combat was good. You're probably better equipped to speak on combat just because in context. But as far as the way that the story plays out, this was probably one of my favorite games of that year.
Yeah, from a structure standpoint, it's very similar to Metroid Fusion, where the story is the main focus, and that's fine to me. If you're looking for a Metroidvania, that may disappoint you, but in my opinion, that it's a S-rank story. It's a 5 out of 5 story, and that is what makes this game. I made that story video analysis for Metroid. This is a game I would consider doing a story analysis for. I love the story that much. I really want to dig into it and just kind of, give it an analysis. It's just fantastic. Everything about the story is great. Perfectly executed. Gameplay-wise, it's similar to... I thought the gameplay was tight. I played it on hard mode, and some of the bosses were some of my favorites that I played the entire time doing the Metroidvania review. So that's... unlike Metroid Fusion, where I thought the bosses were... crap. Iconoclasts really delivered on the bosses for me, and I like the puzzles. They're usually pretty straightforward, just block pushing style puzzles, spatial reasoning type things. But I thought that they were good too. Where the gameplay kind of falls apart is it does do the variety thing that the Shantae I mentioned did, where like it has a sneaking section, it has a part where you have to find an enemy who is sneaking, and that stuff is hit or miss. And might even ruin the game for some people. And its use of the cave story style, if you take damage, you lose abilities, is kind of pointless because it doesn't really affect the combat the same way that cave story did. So it was just kind of a misuse of that mechanic. And the worst part about that is that all of the exploration things that you find are based around that. But yeah, it's, in my opinion, it deserves the S tier for that story alone. It is up there in some of my favorite stories in video games, period. So, yep. Oh, we're going to have Hot Fusion takes next week. Oh, man. Going through Castlevania is easy because I feel about the same about all of them. My feelings about the Metroid series is a little bit stronger. So next...
No.
So next week we are going to do we're going to keep going through this list. How many did we get through? So I don't know.
I think we need to speed up, or we're going to be doing this for like a month.
Yeah, we need to speed up a little bit. But that is our first video for the tier list stream. I'm going to try and talk a little bit less. It was fun talking about a little bit longer on some of these earlier games because they were the first games that I reviewed for the Metroidvania review. Definitely keep talking in the chat, and I'll try and make sure that I don't miss anything over there. If there's anything you want me to talk more about next time, just say something in chat and say, hey, talk more about this game. Otherwise, I'll try and kind of hit 3 points and then move on next week. But for sure, next week we are going to hit the Metroid series at the end of the stream like we did with Castlevania. But for now, that is the end of today's stream. Thank you so much for coming in, and it's good to be back and doing something.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
always enjoyed these.
This is my laptop camera, and this setup is, not the best room for this. I'm sure you can hear a little echo in my voice, so it's not perfect, but I'm glad that we got it together. So, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next week. All right.